God kväll och shalom. Det är Profetisk Uppdatering och den 31 oktober 2023. Jag vill läsa några versar ur psalm 83. Den här psalmen är inte exakt det som uppfylls idag. Man ser på de fiender som mot Israel som räknas upp här, men det är ändå samma inställning, samma onda planer som man har mot Israel idag. Gud, var inte tyst, tig inte och var inte stilla, Gud. Du ser dina fiender larmar och det som hatar dig lyfter upp huvudet. Mot ditt folk har de onda planer, det rådslår mot dem som du beskyddar. De säger, kom vi utrotar dem, så att det inte mer är ett folk och så att ingen mer tänker på Israels namn. Asaf skrev den här psalmen. Och det han uttrycker här, det är inte våra fiender utan Gud, det är dina fiender. Därför att de här fienderna vill utplåna Israel. Och det är samma som pågår idag. Och de vill stoppa och hindra och förstöra Guds plan. Därför är det inte bara Israels fiender utan det är Guds fiender. Vi står med Israel och med det judiska folket. Så kommer några videor här. Och det är bland annat ett svar, en presskonferens där Netanyahu svarar på fråga. Det finns ingen svensk text på, men det han säger ungefär när han får frågan som de menar då att det är civila som dör i Gaza. Om detta är nödvändigt. Han säger detta är nödvändigt. För om de inte stoppar Hamas nu kommer ännu värre attacker längre fram. De är tvungna att stoppa. De har gjort allt de kan och gör allt de kan för att civila ska dra söderut. Där finns det en säker zon. En säker zon. De ser till att de får mat och kläder och vatten och mediciner. Israel är med i detta och ser till att de får det, men de måste dra sig söderut när Israel måste utföra detta. Han jämför med Hitler och andra världskriget, hur man var tvungna, även om det hände att vissa civila dog och man gjorde vissa missar på den tiden som man aldrig pratade om, men alla visste vi måste stoppa Hitler. Vi måste stoppa nazismen. Det är likadant idag. Det gäller inte bara Israel. Det gäller hela civilisationen mot barbarer. Barbariska människor, terrorister. Så detta är en kamp mot barbari, heter det väl på svenska då. Så det är väldigt bra det Netanyahu säger och det han får fram. Och är ni inne här på vår hemsida så finns det också ett par väldigt bra artiklar som ligger ute som går att läsa som är insändare i Dagens Nyheter av en pastor, Simon Holst. Och det har vi ju väntat på att det ska höras någonting från pastorer och kristna ledare. Det behövs verkligen. Vi hoppas det kommer mer av den varan på alla media. Så då tackar jag för mig och önskar er Guds välsignelse. Vi fortsätter be för Israel och för allt det som sker i Mellanöstern och shalom. Erev tov.
Mr Prime Minister, Chris Reason from Channel 7 Australia. I want to ask a question from my country, and the people in my country are looking at this and wondering, they agree with you, they want you to chase down Hamas and terrorism, destroy terrorism in this region, etc. But people can't understand why so many civilians have to die in this process. You argue that Hamas is putting them up as human shields. Is that a good enough excuse? Are you inflicting here collective punishment on the people of Palestine?
Not a single civilian has to die. Hamas merely has to let them go to the safe zone that we created in southeastern Gaza Strip. There's a safe zone there. Not a single civilian has to die. But Hamas is preventing them from leaving, keeping them in the areas of conflict. So I think that you should direct your questions to Hamas. But I can tell you one thing. We're going out of our way to prevent civilian casualties, not only by asking civilians to move, calling them to move, arranging a place for them to be, which is safe, also putting in humanitarian support, providing them with the means, with food, with water, with medicine, and so on. I think that this question should be placed on Hamas, and the more it's placed on Israel, the more you're going to see this repeated again and again and again. So other groups, other criminal states, other criminal organizations will use civilians as human shields. We cannot give immunity to these terrorists. We cannot give immunity to these savages. We have to do everything we can to minimize civilian casualties, but we cannot give up the fight, because then I think this will have disastrous consequences, not only for the future of my country, but for the future of your country, your countries. This is a battle of civilization against barbarians. The barbarians will do something that civilized countries will never do. And civilized countries will make every effort to prevent this. And I'll give you one example. And I'll end with that because I have to go to manage this war and lead it. In 1944, the Royal Air Force bombed the Gestapo headquarters in Copenhagen. It's a perfectly legitimate target. But the British pilots missed. And instead of the Gestapo headquarters, they hit a children's hospital nearby. And I think 84 children were hardly burned to death. That is not a war crime. That is not something you blame Britain for doing. That was a legitimate act of war with tragic consequences that accompany such legitimate actions. And you didn't tell the Allies, don't stamp out Nazism because of such tragic consequences. They went to the end because they knew that the future of our civilization was at stake. Well, I'm telling you right now that the future of our civilization is at stake. We have to win this war. We'll do it by minimizing civilian casualties, and may we succeed.
So I will remind you, from this day on, each time you look at me, you will remember what staying silent in the face of evil means. Just like my grandparents and the grandparents of millions of Jews, from now on, my team and I will wear yellow stars. We will wear this star until you condemn the atrocities of Hamas and demand the immediate release of our hostages. We walk with a yellow star as a symbol of pride, a reminder that we swore to fight back, to defend ourselves. Never again is now. Council members, in the face of the UN's silence, our enemies have become emboldened.
Are you defending terrorism? And things are starting to happen on the ground. According to foreign press, and Israel has not made this actual public yet, but we all know what's going on, the ground offensive into Gaza has started. And we need to talk a little bit about what that is. We need to talk a little bit about what that means. And we need to talk a little bit about what's going to happen as a result of this. And let's see if I can tie it all together. Israel started moving tanks and infantry, heavy engineering equipment. And as opposed to what everybody thought, it's going to be massive amounts of power, Israel's doing this very, very slowly and very, very carefully right now. There's a lot of people who believe that Israel hasn't triggered the whole offensive capability that we can, because there's still something going on with the hostages behind the works. There's thoughts that the Americans are asking Israel to hold on with the whole offensive right now because they're in some kind of hostage negotiation with the Qataris. And we, most of us in Israel, have a problem, and our government and our military is actually saying we need to do this. Another thing is, I need to make very clear what the objectives of this ground offensive are, what we're doing and why we're going in. The official, the designated, the published objectives is to destroy the Hamas's military capability. It is to hit all of the Hamas fighters and to destroy them as a fighting force. Israel will never allow another organization or the Hamas to sit over on the other side of the border and threaten us with the kind of attack that took place on the 7th of October. The second objective is to bring the hostages back. And these two are interacting. The Hamas has been playing hostage games, hostage negotiations, just like any hostage situation. And Israel has decided that we will put pressure on the Hamas from a military point of view, and we will deal with the hostages on the other diplomatic, intelligence, and other points of view. You can understand that it's very, very hard for a lot of us to say we go in and do what we need, even though we don't know exactly where the hostages are. And that's something that I need to take into consideration. So I'm going to say this. Pray for the hostages. But pray for the soldiers who are going in and putting themselves in harm's way. I mean, literally staring down, a lot of bad people who want to kill them. Pray for our leaders, military and political leaders who have to make harsh decisions about how this is going to happen, interacting with all the different kind of parts in this. And I'm going to say something weird, and I know this sounds kind of weird, because the situation in Gaza is going to get very, very harsh. Pray for the innocent people in Gaza. Pray that they will find shelter, they will find a place. They're being used by pawns in the Hamas's chess game. Pray that they manage to get out of harm's way and not be a part of this terrible, terrible tragedy that their own organization, their own government has put them in. But I need also to talk to you about what's going to happen now, because I've seen the flip in the narrative, in the victimhood narrative over the last week. Israel was the victim of the most horrific medieval kind of terrorist attack, but now we're seeing the flip. And all you hear on the streets in cities all over Europe, all you hear from most of the media is Israel is the oppressor. It's all about how poor Palestinians are now being bombed. It's all about the loss of life. It's all about the ceasefire. Stop the fire. I mean, somebody's going to come into my home, murder my grandmother, take my children hostage. I'm going to go into his house to bring them back, and everybody's talking to me, now be nice, stop the fire. And I don't know if you understand, Israel will not cease fire right now. We can't, we shouldn't, and I don't think the world should make us do something like this. But I'm going to say a couple of things here that I think when we go back to this recording a week from now or 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be able to say, I told you so. Because Israel is being turned into the perpetrator. Israel is being turned into the monster. We are defending our homes and our families, and we are being ostracized for self-defense. And you're going to hear words like, it's all because of the occupation. But here's the thing. Israel hasn't occupied Gaza since 2005. And Israel has tried to reach a two-state solution more than 8 times with the Arabs. We were willing to live side by side. Gaza is ruled by an Islamic organization that does not want to live side by side. But people are buying into it. You're going to hear words like genocide. Wait until, well, it's already started, but you're hearing it. We have no reason to genocide the Muslims or the Palestinians. And here's the thing. Proof is that they're not dying in the numbers. They're not being wiped out. You're going to hear about ethnic cleansing. Israel doesn't want the Gaza Strip. We have nothing to do with it. We don't want to be there anymore. We want to defend our people. But it's going to turn into occupation, genocide, and ethnic cleansing. And it's because the deceiver is working overtime and is planting these ideas, is planting these truths into the minds of many, many people. I need you to not be deceived. That's the main reason that we're here today. That's the main thing that I need to convey to you. Do not be deceived. And after you realize what the truth is and what the deception is, it's going to be your job to stand up. And what I'm trying to say is it's going to get bad. People that you respect, people that you think, your family members are going to say, how can you support Israel? Because they're bombing Gaza. No, we're not bombing Gaza. We're bombing Hamas military positions. How can you support Israel? Because Palestinian children are dying. No, children are dying because they're being used as human shields. Israel doesn't want to kill them. We have told them to move out. How can you support Israel? Because Israel has occupied this territory. You cannot occupy your homeland. These are the things that you need to know. These are the things that you need to stand fast, and you have to be willing and able to explain this to other people. I'm going to be coming over to the United States next week, and my job is going to be to go to as many and reach as many people and give them the truth as possible. If you know of somebody, a church, a pastor, an organization that would like to hear me explain what's going on, I'm really for that. But I'm not the only one. You have to stand up. You have to do, well, what the Bible told you to do.